You can turn the wheel in a different direction whenever you want. In fact, let's do that right now. 5 common childhood storylines. I'm going to outline the 5 common childhood labels my clients give themselves. You may see yourself in one of these narratives, or if you grew up with inconsistent parenting, you may identify with several. For that reason, I encourage you to read them all, but don't view them as strict interpretations of who you were as a child or who you are as a parent. We are not programmed robots. I honestly don't even like labels because I know just how complex our individual personalities really are. Just because you see yourself in one of these examples doesn't mean that you need to own that label. In fact, identifying with one of these examples says more about how you were treated as a child than who you actually are as a person. But by tapping into who you believe you were as a child, you are more likely to learn some things about how you're showing up as a parent. As soon as you came into the world, you started adapting to the worldviews of the people around you. These inherited beliefs became the steering wheel for how we parent as adults, and they play a big role in the direction you choose in your own parenting, so they cannot be overlooked. So as you move through these motifs, be honest and stay curious, but also be gentle with yourself. Take this exercise seriously, but not too seriously, okay? Let it be a reflective practice, but not the absolute truth. I want you to remember that what you believe isn't always the whole story. If you see yourself in these storylines and begin to identify with any of these roles, please know that you can rise above any current thinking and affirm new truths for yourself. Truer truths, if you will. We have so much creative power and we can affirm new storylines. After you read through each label, I will ask you some questions about how these beliefs might be showing up in your own life and in your relationship with your child. I won't follow up with what your answers must mean or give you some quick diagnosis. I want you to draw your own conclusions about your answers because you are your best teacher. So try not to overanalyze it. In other words, don't call your bestie and start listing everything that's wrong with you or with how you were raised. Chill. There's nothing wrong with you. You just may be walking around with beliefs that don't serve you well, which means you don't need a new you. You just need to adopt a few new beliefs. At the end of each section, I provide some affirmations you can use when you feel yourself slipping back into old thought patterns that don't support you and your child. Now, I'm not suggesting that you need to sticky note these affirmations anywhere or say them in the mirror. If that works for you, great. But if not, use them as in-the-moment mantras. That's what works for me. When I feel my inner child rising up and panicking, I calm her with affirmations. Yes, I talk to myself, y'all. You don't have to talk to yourself, of course, but I've found it to be very effective for myself, and so have many of my clients. The good child. Would you describe yourself as an easy kid? Were you seen and not heard? Did you try your best to stay out of the way? Did you ask for very little? Did you fear disappointing the adults around you? Did you constantly seek approval? Were you regularly praised for your good behavior? Did you receive very few punishments growing up because you rarely made mistakes? I hear many good child adults say things like, I got beaten one time and I learned my lesson. Or, I never really got into trouble. A lot of the parents I talk to who grew up like this lean toward perfectionism. They are often really meticulous about not making mistakes, and they organize their lives in a way that leaves very little room for error. They're extremely rigid with their boundaries and are hypercritical of themselves. In their relationships, they have very little tolerance for mistakes. If you resonate with the good child, consider the following questions. How is this experience affecting your relationship with your child? How do you respond when your child makes mistakes? How are rules made in your house, and how are they enforced? How do you handle emotional behaviors like whining, complaining, and tantrums? How comfortable are you with inconvenient behaviors like your child not putting on their jacket or them saying something inappropriate at the wrong time? How do you feel when your child struggles with something like learning a new skill or achieving something? Do you struggle with communicating or connecting with your child on a deeper level? Do you think your child is a reflection of you and experience shame, embarrassment, or guilt anytime they make a mistake? Asking yourself these questions is a great way to get in touch with how you really want to show up in your parenting. Maybe you see a pattern of perfectionism that you didn't previously see. Growing up having to perform and be good is a lot of pressure. If you were the good child, you probably had expectations that were way beyond your actual development. You may have learned that being good was the only way to gain acceptance and safety in your environment. You may have learned that children having big feelings, big needs, or big problems was inconvenient.